All right. Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to the 2022 Latinx Kidlit Book Festival. My name is M. Garcia Pena, and this is the Debut Authors Expectations versus Reality panel brought to you by the Authors Guild. Please read our anti-harassment policy in the chat box. And don't forget to subscribe to the Latinx Kidlit Book Festival's YouTube channel. We also have an amazing entry form giveaway. We're giving away free books. So you're going to find that in the chat as well. So if your first question was, Garcia, this session is called Debut Authors, Expectations versus Reality. And a few of y'all are not debuts. Correct, because this is a panel for debut creators filled with advice from authors and illustrators who have gone through their debut year and want to share those hard-learned lessons. So as we're chatting, you can drop your questions in the chat box and we will get to those after our initial conversation. Let's meet our fellow creators. And I'm going to start off with Adriana. Can you tell us about your debut book and your current book if they are different?
I am a debut author. I'm thinking the only debut author in this group who does not have any other books out at the moment. This is Abuelita and I Make Flan, which I wrote and illustrated, and it came out this year in August. So August of 2022 from Charles Bridge Publishing.
Although I will correct you that you did have an illustrator debut with Boomer at Your Service.
True. I was an illustrator.
Yes. And this is your author illustrator debut.
Yes. Technically, this is my author illustrator debut. Thank you. Yes, you are correct.
All right. Amparo, can you introduce yourself, your book that you debuted with, and then what is currently out?
Hello, everyone. My name is Amparo, and my debut novel is Blaze Wrath Games, which is essentially the World Cup with Dragons. I debuted in 2020, a great year to debut. And my latest is Our Shadows Have Claws, which I'm not sure if you can see very well, but it's a young adult. Oh, there you go. Thank you. It's a young adult anthology. It's got Latin monster stories, and we have 2 contributors on this panel. Yay!
Thank
you for having me.
Claribel, can you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Hi, I'm Claribel A. Ortega, or Claribel, however you want to say it. My debut novel is Ghost Squad. It also came out in 2020, right around April, which is a great time, being sarcastic. And it's about 2 best friends who unleash a curse on St. Augustine, Florida, and have to send it back into the underworld before the full moon on Halloween. So it's like a perfect October read. And currently, Witchlings is out. It's the first of a series. It asks what happens if the sorting hat put you nowhere. It was an instant New York Times bestseller. And next week, Frizzy, my debut graphic novel with Rose Busamra, comes out. It's about a young Dominican American girl who is trying to learn how to embrace her curly hair.
Love it. And also got the chance to read Frizzy early, and I loved it.
So did I. And I that. Love the illustrations as well. Perfect.
Yeah. That's not fair. I haven't read it yet.
Incredible.
Well, sorry,
I'm
not
take it personal.
It's super cute.
And I should introduce myself. I am M. Garcia Pena, also publishing as Mia Garcia. My first book was in 2016. It was Even If the Sky Falls, and it was a 24-hour YA romance set in New Orleans. And my latest is a short story in Our Shadows Have Claws, which is the YA Latine anthology. So very excited to be here. All right, we're going to kick it off with our first question, which is, so you've signed a contract. What's the first thing that you did, and what would you recommend new authors, illustrator consider as they are starting this journey? Because really that contract is like the official, dotted line for this journey.
Okay. Do you want me to begin?
And you all can jump in. This is a conversation.
All right. Well, I'm a spreadsheet person. And I have a newsletter. So the first thing I did was start figuring out how I was going to tell people. I'm one of those people who actually doesn't immediately blurt stuff out on Twitter and with cryptic messages. I'm definitely a planner. So I had, okay, when can I say, my first questions were to my publisher and my agent. What can I say when? What can I show when? Who can I tell? And they told me, okay, well, once it's on Publishers Weekly, you can say whatever you want. Like you, but cover reveals, all that stuff, I put it in a spreadsheet when I was going to tell my newsletter folks, and then that's how I digested that amazing information.
I think that's a great way of putting it, because I'm not that organized. I wish I were. But I essentially, when I signed the contract, or even before I signed, once I knew that a contract was coming, I think I screamed. I was very happy. I know a lot of people cry out of joy, but I don't know why I only cry when I'm very, very like touched and moved. So I was just happy, and I immediately told my parents, and I texted a couple of people, don't tell my editor, and yeah, or my agent. And then I think the first thing that I would suggest when you get that moment or have that moment happen is brace yourself for the unexpected, because the only thing you know at that point is that you're selling a book or two.
That's it.
So I think what I did when I got my first contract versus now is very different. Things sort of like evolve as you have more books out. Now I'm sort of like perpetually on deadline, and I'm a lot more about like sort of like numbers and logistics and that kind of stuff, because I know how things work. Obviously, when you're new, you're really excited and you want to know, like, yes, when can you tell?
Yeah.
When can I say something? I'm not so much in a rush to do that now, only because I know that sometimes things do get pushed. So I sort of let things unfold as they need to, especially because I never want to sort of put too much pressure on my team for an announcement. But I think the first thing you do is any questions that you have, anything that you're unsure of, and I mean like anything, talk to your team about it, ask your agent about it, have a call to tell them like what are the next steps. Make sure that you have your deadlines correct if you sold on proposal, let's say, or if you still need to do work for the book. Just make sure you're communicating. I know when you're new, it can feel sort of scary sometimes to ask questions. You don't want to be annoying, but you're not being annoying.
Not at all.
Your team is there to answer questions for you. Your agent's there to answer questions for you. And it's better for you to ask and to know than to sort of like spiral out of control. And the thing is that the one thing that we always say, and that I always say in this industry, is that it depends. So like what's true for you might not have been true for like a friend of yours or like someone else who's even shares the same, editor or publisher. So it's better to just like ask your team directly. Yes, you can talk to other authors about any questions you might have after you sign your contract, but the best thing to do is sort of like ask the people who are directly involved with your release. What comes next? What should I be prepared for? What should I be doing at this point? What don't I have that I should have, like a website, all of that stuff. Just any questions that you have, ask them. Have like a team meeting, maybe. That
is a great point. Did your was I going to ask? So when I signed my contract, my publisher also gave me this giant packet about like who I am and like how they could possibly market the book, and like a really long questionnaire. And that was something I wasn't really expecting until much later. But they didn't expect me to finish it until much later. So little by little, I would drop in. But I think that's I thought that was a really good way for me to start thinking about the book. And then the other thing I wanted to say was, as an illustrator, that's when my work began, actually. Like, I feel like that's when I was really, like, the dummy that I had turned in, which is like a rough version, black and white. That's when I started like really getting into edits for visual and edits for writing. So it's not a free pass. And there was a big gap in time actually between those first edits and signing the contract. I signed in 2020. Yes. I signed in 2020. So like,
that's a great point, because I feel like this is more common than is said or than is admitted. But my debut novel was not my first contract. So the first time that I knew that I was going to get published, it was 2 years. It was a year prior to getting my book deal for Blaze Wrath Games. So it was kind of weird, because technically I knew that was coming out first. And then I was doubly excited just because I knew it was going to hit shelves before the very first book. And that first contract, that book is still not on shelves. So.
Oh, That's so
Wild.
painful.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So would you say one of my general recommendations would be to document everything. Signing a book contract is a really big deal, and regardless of whether the book eventually comes out or when it comes out, you want to be able to document all of that and share that if you feel comfortable. I also feel like that's a good way to build communities, to share that joy that you have for something that you created. Do you all feel that putting things in a little bit of a more concrete for our viewers, like 6 months is around where you are able to pre-order something? What do you feel like things that you would recommend doing? Like Amparo, you were one with Our Shadows Have Claws. You used to send us these little like things for social media of the reviews and cover reveals and all that stuff. Anything that people should pay attention to and just have in their Excel grid, Adriana?
Yeah, go ahead, Amparo. I'll let you go.
I think my main thing is once you have a cover, immediately ask your team when it's going live, who is actually announcing it. Are you doing that? Is a publication doing that? A website? Anyone really, or any sort of public figure in social media platforms or on social media platforms who is actually doing the reveal? Because if it's up to you, I definitely feel like 6 months is a good timeline. It starts building that momentum of people getting their like word of mouth going. It's like, oh, look at this cover, because covers are striking for the most part. And I do think that there are people who think or who say, oh, covers don't sell books. But I think that a great cover is going to catch someone's eye and is going to maybe have them look at that cover copy and say, okay, what is this about? Who is this author? If you're a debut, I think covers are hugely helpful. But if your cover isn't attracting as much attention as you think it should have or what you expected it to garner, I think that the next step would be for you to see what other authors are doing. I think community is a great way to learn because, of course, you have friends and colleagues. Colleagues are not always friends, but I definitely think that you need to open up those channels of communication and be genuine with people. No one is there to serve you, but you definitely need to be respectful enough to understand that the more community you build, it's just better all around. You're going to feel safer in the sense that you're going to see it in a more healthy way, the whole promotional aspect of it, because I literally feel like that's the least power an author has. So the more you feel like you have someone to bounce ideas off of, or the more you feel like, okay, well, I think, for example, Twitter is where a lot of authors sometimes will be, hey, can you help me share my cover if no one else is doing it with them, you know? So it's like, hey, can you help me share my cover? And you agree on time zones, or not time zones, like time slots. You go at this hour, you go at this hour, so that there's more,
Oh,
I want to say
cool.
press.
That's so deliberate.
not press,
I never
it's like
used Twitter like
coverage.
that. That's so cool.
Yeah, so it's more of like you have to go from the aspect. In the case of this anthology, as you mentioned, we did get a lot of graphics for social media from the publisher, but that's not always the case. I mean, the art team went wild with graphics, and like most of the time, we make those graphics for ourselves. So
That's
it
what I was
really
gonna
does
say.
depend on your team.
That's my note basically, is like a lot of times it's you doing the cover reveal, and sometimes people will be like, oh no, my illustrator gave away my cover. But honestly, you can do a cover reveal more than one time. That was my point. Like, it's okay to reveal it more than once.
I think 6 months is a good timeline, but again, it differs. So for Witchlings, because it's a series and because it did really well, the cover reveal happened just like 4 months after book 1 came out and a
Oh,
full
wow.
2 months before the second book came out. So it's like very, very fast paced.
Yeah.
So Witchlings 1 came out in April, Witchlings 2 is coming out in May of next year, which feels like now. It feels like so soon. So we have to start getting everything sort of ready. I actually think unless you're getting, and even then, unless you're getting your cover revealed by like a huge outlet, and I mean like Entertainment Weekly, and even then, sometimes it's sort of like getting people to do an extra click on something can be so difficult. I have always preferred doing my own cover reveals, with the caveat that like I'm really good at making videos myself. I do After Effects and I can do those kinds of graphics so they can be really eye-catching. But I feel like anything that can sort of bring a reader back to the author's platform and help you build your platform and get them to click on that pre-order link, because it's just like one click away versus like embedded in something else. I think it's really helpful. And I don't even remember really what the question was. On a side,
Trust me, you answered it.
I went down.
You
we went
answered
down a
it. You did
spiral
it.
of
You
like
did it.
of covers, and then I was like thinking about all other stuff. But I hope I answered it.
You did, and the spiral is part of publishing, so
Yeah.
it all comes together.
It's a side effect.
And I will comment on what Amparo said about building that community, and remind people that community goes both ways. So to pay attention how you are participating and how people are participating with you and your work. Adriana, I'm interested about cover reels and all that stuff, because technically as the illustrator, it's kind of on you when you are able to reveal that.
The reason why I said that is because someone was really upset that their illustrator had revealed their cover before they did. And then I was like, she probably didn't even know that cover reveals were special to you, because she's an illustrator and she's illustrating lots of covers. So like, for me being both, like, I think it was sort of, I looked to you all actually to see what you all were doing with your covers and when you were timing. I know. It's true. I look up to you guys. So what I did was I actually created like a flan club. I know that sounds silly, but that's what I did.
Yeah.
A flan
That
club.
sounds delicious, actually.
So
I'm hungry now.
I know. So I was giving out the way that I was trying to build community was the theme of my book was flan. So I did a flan club, and I made a flan club of the month. So I was giving away a recipe with my newsletter every month, and I have been, and the last one will be in December, to try to build up newsletter recipients. And I'll probably drip them out as blog posts as well, so that, even if you missed them in February of this year, you'll still be able to reach all those recipes. But yeah, I started 6 months in advance and revealed the cover, said, join the flan club. This book is coming soon, August, whatever. Like, here's the cover, and it's very cute, little girl looking in an oven. There's flan, even though technically it would be covered in foil, fudged out a little bit. But yeah, luckily I had the image, but remember, I didn't have the text, because that's actually the book designer's job, the art director's job. So I had the art, but not the writing. So I couldn't share any real art until I had, like, everything was laid out. So even though I had the background, I didn't have the really pretty typeset font.
Got it.
So I couldn't, even if I wanted to.
All right. That sounds okay. Okay, what is next? Oh, my favorite, pre-order campaigns.
Oh, yeah, this was part of my pre-order campaign.
Yes. So pre-order campaigns, did you do one? And lessons learned. This is, I want all of the details. What would you recommend or not recommend? I don't know who wants to jump in first.
Go ahead, Amparo.
No, I was actually gonna kick it off to you, because I feel like you are a prime example of, like, your publisher actually having a pre-order campaign for the author versus an author doing it by themselves.
So I've actually so Ghost Squad didn't really have a pre-order campaign. My first book, I just did sort of like a digital one, and it was very small and last minute because I really didn't feel like doing it. I have like post office phobia, so like if I have to go to the post office, I'm probably not going to participate in whatever it is. It just gives me a lot of anxiety. I've gotten better about it, but at the time I was like, no, thank you. It was also like COVID times, so it was like
2020.
yeah. So so for Ghost Squad, it was like very small. But then for Witchlings, now with the caveat again, Witchlings was a lead title. So for lead titles, it's very different than, like a mid-list title or something that's like a book that's not going to get as big of a marketing push. So for this book, the publisher, I suggested, I said it would be really great to do pins, right? I always have like lovable animals in my books. It's like part of what I like to do. So in Witchlings, I don't know if I can.
Like an enamel pin?
Yes.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
So
yeah, it was an
cool.
enamel pin. So this is Edgar Allan Toad. So we had like a big meeting, like a big sales meeting with my marketing meeting with my publisher, and we sort of bounced ideas off each other. They told me their plan. I told them sort of like what I wanted to do, and we landed on doing the enamel pin. So the way that they did it was really, really cool because they did it through this website called Edelweiss. So it's like NetGalley basically. So you can get advanced copies of books, but then you can also, it's a place where you can reach indie booksellers. So they had this campaign where if you bought a pack of 5 copies of Witchlings, you would get 5 Edgar Allan Toad pins.
That
So
is so cool.
they can buy sets. So they did that. They got a list of indie bookstores, and about, I want to say like 88 indie bookstores participated. So when we announced it, it was like a huge list of all these indie bookstores. We had a Google sheet with like links to where they could get the book. I had like a landing page specifically for the indie pre-order campaign that I made myself on my website that had all of the books, the stores, sorry, where you could get the pin, what was included. And then there was one particular store, which was my local indie, that I was signing the book as well. So if you wanted a signed copy of the book plus the pin, you would order from them. They also had character cards at that store. So they got a lot of pre-orders, but it really worked well because Witchlings debuted at #1 on the indie bestseller list. And I really believe that it was because of the pre-order. The publisher did that though. I wouldn't have been able to do that on myself. I can't even tell you how you would do that on Edelweiss. I have no idea. I have no clue. And I'm not sure how it would work in terms of like asking a publisher to do something like that, but it can't hurt to like have the discussion with them, right? It's also something that like I would suggest if you are doing it alone and you could do something like a pin. People love pins. Just partner with like 1 or 2 local indie bookstores. But again, that's something that you should only do if you can like really afford it, because it can get pricey.
Yep. Shipping is part of what my other job is. Like I sell greeting cards and stuff. So I love the post office. And for me, I did the pre-order campaign that I did was all able to fit in this kind of envelope. So pins would cost you more, right, in postage. So I printed my own stickers that said un cafecito.
That's so cute.
Right, and then I had this one that said fantastic. It's probably going to take a while to focus.
I'm so hungry.
I know. Food, right? So then I had the bookmark with the scan link, but this was for anybody who pre-ordered got a signed book plate since I couldn't sign books because my indie bookstore is only a used bookstore. So they don't carry they don't carry like that. And then the other thing I did was I got a print.
Oh, I love that. That's so
cute. That's awesome.
Well, I was going to say one more thing. So if you do partner with an indie bookstore, what I did for my local indie is I brought them the pins and they actually shipped it out with the book. You have to make sure they're okay with that.
Yeah.
But if your local indie is okay with, if you do a bookmark or if you do, whatever you do, if they can put it in the package and send it out, that worked really well for that particular store that I worked with.
So you don't incur that costs into your budget.
Right, because they're already sending the book out, right? And the pin was very small, so I just brought them the whole bag and they did it. I mean, I don't think every indie store is going to do that, but it doesn't hurt to ask and to see what they could do for you.
Yeah, in my case, my first pre-order campaign it had more items, I would say, because as a reader, I love pre-order campaigns and I love the character artwork that comes with most campaigns. So I was really excited to commission art, and I actually got to work with an illustrator that illustrated my very first published work. So that was really exciting. Shout out to Eliana Falcon Dvorsky. And I also had, I designed on Canva, and I had printed a bookmark that was actually designed to be a ticket to the World Cup, or to the Blaze Wrath World Cup.
That's very
And and I also had book plates. So those were sent by my publisher. They sent over book plates. I signed them and I included them. As Adriana was saying, the flatter the envelope, the less the cost. And I think it's very important that for any pre-order campaigns, but specifically if you're a debut and you're not counting on a lot of finances for a pre-order campaign, flat envelopes, anything that is either very flat or you can just flatten it as much as possible. And just a very important side note, a very important PSA, shipping to Puerto Rico from the United States costs the same as shipping throughout the US. So if I'm shipping to the US or if I'm getting packages from the US, it's the same cost. So just thought I'd mention that.
Don't let them fool you.
Yeah, don't let them fool you.
A lot of people are like, oh no, that's so costly. You live on an island in the Caribbean. And I'm like, we're US territory. Look at that. So yes. And also, what else? Oh, for my second novel, this is not my debut, but I also enjoyed writing a short story for that campaign. So that was a digital incentive. If you can do digital incentives, as Claribel was saying, and also just really flat envelope kind of incentives, you're golden.
And the size of the envelope matters, by the way. I basically chose the maximum, like the maximum size to still keep the forever stamp or whatever it is. Yeah.
Yes, I will recommend non-physical incentives. I remember an author once did a song that went with something in the book, and if you pre-ordered it, you had that digital song in your inbox. So I did a pre-order campaign because for my second book, because for my first book, I felt bad that I hadn't done one and that I hadn't pushed it as much in terms of marketing. So I was like, I'm going to go all out for the resolutions. So I did a tote. It was the tote era, the era of totes.
So tote bag. I was like,
a tote bag. Yeah, it was the era of tote bags.
Claire was like,
it's always the era of tote bags in publishing. Has it ended? Let's be real. I get one. I feel like I get one every day.
So this was like prime. Like everybody had a tote. I was like, I'm gonna do a tote. And I will say the first thing that you should do if you're like, I want to do a pre-order campaign is you set yourself a budget and you stick to it.
Oof, yes.
I budgeted because it was, oh my gosh, 2018. So I was designing it early 2018. I didn't have Canva at that point. So I did a few things on Photoshop. And I also, from my days at Penguin, knew some designer friends. So I paid someone to do my decals. So I did a tote, decals, and some bookmarks and a signed book plate. I remember literally like ironing these totes so that I can put them in the envelopes and they wouldn't look like puffy super envelopes. Bulky, yeah. And stalking the USPS to make sure that the person who worked there was the person that I liked, was this lady who would always let me get away with sending it first class and not sending it package mail. Because if I got that one dude, he'd be like, no, this is a package. And I would get a certain lady who's like, oh, it's okay. We'll just send, oh, it's okay, sweetie. We'll just send it first class. And that was like $2 opposed to like $5.
Yeah.
So budget, and stick to that budget. And again, think of things that would, if you do want to do it, because I didn't have any publisher support. This was all me. Think of the time that you have and also the energy that you have behind it.
Yeah, well. I've talked to people who have done their own pre-order campaigns as well. Two things. I don't want to forget to tell you guys this, but another really cool digital thing that you can do is the first 2 or 3 chapters of your book as a PDF. That's what we did for Ghost Squad also, and just sort of stop it off right in a place where people will want to continue to read. So I just wanted to add that to the digital things that you could do. You let your publisher know. Obviously, you shouldn't do it yourself because you can get in trouble. But the people that I've talked to who have funded their own pre-order campaigns, because I've asked a lot of questions and people who've done it themselves, and they said basically universally that it's something that you do as a like a fan service for your readers, basically, like just remember that it might not get you like tons and tons of pre-orders. It's something that you should really just do because you feel passionate about it and you want to do it, because it can be stressful, it can get expensive, and so like setting the budget is really important. But just like remember, it's something that you should only be doing like if it's something you want to do as like sort of a cool thing for your readers. Not that it can't make a difference, because a couple hundred pre-orders can make a very big difference sometimes. But just know that that might not be the case. It might not be that many. So don't have it as like your only strategy, basically.
Yeah, I think it was Kat Cho, actually. Shout out to Kat. That after I read that post, I realized that I was going about it the wrong way because I was stressed out. Like when I was getting everything organized and even brainstorming things, I was stressed out. And then I read Kat, I think it was for Vicious Spirits, that she did a pre-order campaign. And then I was like, I can't remember if it was Instagram or Twitter, but I do remember that Kat said something along the lines of, I'm doing this because I genuinely love my readers and I want to treat them, kind of like share the joy. And once I read that, it was like something switched in my brain. I was like, okay, Kat, I'll do the same thing.
I totally agree with it.
Yeah, I agree too. Sharing flan. Come on.
Yes, of course.
And art and cute art. Like, yeah.
My decals were adorable. I was like, if anything else, these are for me.
These are mine.
Yeah, the totes.
All right, next up, social media and you.
Uh-oh.
Sounds like a rom-com.
Controversial one.
I know. What do you mean, and you? Do you mean
and you? I'm looking at you.
Soul?
And your soul, yes. Like what are your what are your thoughts on social media and how do you approach it? Like how do you keep that balance or not keep that balance? I know. No. You're like pass on this question.
The first thought that comes to every one of us is like, I hate it, but I have to. Like for me, it's like I hate it, but I have to. Like for me, as a visual person, like as an illustrator, I got onto Instagram back in the day when it was a chronological thing. Like it was the first social media that I actually really was into and I loved. And then everything changed in like, what was it, 2008, 2010? I don't know when it was. What year are we in? 22?
I think so.
When did it change? Like 2011, 2012? I can't remember.
It's changed a couple of times.
It's changed like 5 or 6 times. I want to say it's changed a lot. And it's almost like every 2 years they change things. And so part of it is sort of realizing that, of course, it's all curated, right? Like, and for me, it changed from being like a personal expression of my latest, look at what I'm into. I'm doing watercolors of kittens, into like the more focused, more curated. And sadly, it's lost. Like I only share stories with my family that are personal. Like, do you know what I mean? Like you have that setting in stories where you can do personal. Everything else has kind of become a curated form of letting people know what's going on. So it's become more of a short news story, whereas Twitter has become more verbal socially for me. And I do like weekly chats with people and stuff like that, which is funny because I was so scared of Twitter. So scared as an illustrator. It was a very scary place for me because everyone was getting like, people were like cancel culture or whatever. Like, maybe I'll get canceled for saying the wrong thing. But no, it's not like that at all. I feel like you curate your community in that one. I feel like Twitter is about finding your people and then, you deleting the noise. Like you don't really have to participate in any of the ugliness if you don't want to. So that's what my take on social media is. I schedule posts. Perhaps that doesn't get as much engagement. And I also love commenting. I'm a chatterbox. So I love talking to people's posts, even if it's not them, even if I do suspect that they may have been pre-scheduled. You know what I mean?
As an illustrator, do you think it is better to be on Twitter than Instagram if you were to pick one, or the other way around?
Art directors, they say they're on Instagram, right? And that's true. But more editors who are the ones that are actually acquiring books, Twitter.
Okay.
Also, there's TikTok, which is super fun. Like I find it to be a lot of fun. I know. Is it having an effect on book sales? Probably not for me, but I definitely still have a lot of fun.
I think that's such a good attitude to have, though,
Mhm.
because one thing that makes me very irrationally angry is when people say that social media doesn't make a difference. And I'm like, that is very possible for you, but it depends on the person. Being good at social media is a legitimate skill. It is a legitimate skill that takes practice. It takes a lot of time and commitment, which is very annoying sometimes. Not everybody wants to do it, and I don't blame people for not wanting to do it, but I think it gets really difficult when people do discredit sort of like how much it is helping the people who do get the hang of it and who are good at it and who like sort of like crack the formula, because also doing it a lot doesn't mean that it's gonna work either,
Mhm.
unfortunately. But that's one thing that I sort of try to tell people a lot. It's like it can be really discouraging, it can be hard, and I don't think that it's something that you have to do if you don't want to do, but you have to sort of accept that you are giving up potential benefits when you do that.
True.
You just are. It's we can't sort of like live in the era of like these new authors who are blowing up on like TikTok and doing all of these things and say it doesn't matter. I think that's
Mhm.
really short-sighted, and every other sort of like industry uses social media. Every creative industry uses social
True.
media and relies on it. It's hard because if you have like a movie, if you have music, usually you have a team behind you, and those things are sort of like a lot easier to express on the TikTok, on Instagram. Other people will latch on to a song a lot easier than they will an entire book. So those things can be really challenging, but I think that it's really good to sort of like know what your strengths are and try to play to them. Um, I'll use Ryan LaSala as an example. Like his TikTok is chaotic and it's like a mixture of all the things that he likes to do, and he has Broadway stuff and day in the life things and jokes, and he talks about his books, but he's been able to sort of like cultivate an audience for himself just talking about the things that make him excited and that he likes, and he's finding like-minded people at the same time. I think the connection aspect is the thing that a lot of people sort of like forget about. Like, you're finding people who will like your books because they are like you, right? I like to write these things. I'm gonna just sort of be myself and hope that my readers find me. For middle grade, it can be a lot harder, but you can connect to librarians, to teachers, and to readers who are older and like middle grade, or parents of those readers. So I would just say sort of try it.
Mhm.
Try to translate whatever your skills or whatever your interests are onto um, a particular social media platform, and remember that it's very personal to each author. I think making blanket statements and publishing is almost always a really bad idea, because what, like I said before, what works for one person won't work for another. I can tell you right now, Ghost Squad would not have done and continue to do as well as it's doing if it weren't for my social media presence and the
Agreed.
skills that I sort of uh, built for myself on social media.
Can I make a comment to that actually, Claribel? I think one thing that I loved about all of your social media presence, especially with regards to Ghost Squad, which is how like I first saw your work, is that all the pieces of videos that you put together, they were super engaging and cute, and like I got a sense of what these characters were going to be like. Like it was just very like reflective of the thing, and I used your media savvy as a sort of template for me. Like when I was doing my little videos for, I know, because we were part of this La
Right.
Musa thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you gave us tips and tricks for marketing, and I was like, oh
Mhm.
yeah, of course, I do know. I studied animation. I did like a 3 or 4 classes. I know. I was like, I
What
should
a
probably
what a great skill to
try.
have.
I didn't use it that much, but I learned editing, basic editing, and so I was like,
Mm.
okay, I used those skills. I used the very basic Adobe Rush, which is like the cheese ball version of what's it called? Oh, I'm not gonna remember, but it's an editing software. Really, really easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then actually, Amparo, your life on TikTok is really fun. I follow you.
Well, I was actually going to comment on that because what you both mentioned about it being a skill is so true in the sense that I have seen so many authors complain about having to use social media. It's like, oh no, now I have to open a TikTok account. Like, I don't want to do that. Like, how do you do that? And of course, your complaints are valid. And if you don't want to do it, don't do it, right? But I think that when you can tell that something is being forced, like
Mm-hmm.
they're putting out a video, a tweet, an Instagram post, anything that feels so forced, it does the opposite of actually getting your attention in a way in a way that feels authentic, and you're like, yes, this is clearly just a way to sell you something. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
let you kind of do it in an organic way. And
TikTok is really
also,
good at that. It will reveal.
yes.
I feel like TikTok is amazing at like. So Instagram is listen. If you like that form of media, if you like expressing yourself in a selly kind of way, Instagram. That's where you should be. Don't go onto TikTok trying to be Instagrammy. It doesn't work.
Yeah. People will find you
Yeah.
out unless you're a good actor.
Yes. And also, I feel like, for example, a lot of people should know if you're a debut or about to debut, or even if you're someone who's been published multiple times, social media is not your journal. And what I mean by that is that if you have anything to share with your audience,
Ooh,
of
that's
course you should share it with your audience because you do want to be genuine and you want to be a
But
person.
it's a hot take.
However, however, you know I only deliver hot takes. However, I feel like there are things that you should, as I think Claribel is the pro at saying this, you should keep it in the group chat, right? So I
Yeah. Or
think
in your
that
journal.
in your journal, yeah, buy a journal, get a journal, and complain there. But there are
Yeah.
things that like systemic racism, classism, elitism, anything that is very much an oppressive tool, you should of course be vocal about those things. However, I feel like there are just very toxic attitudes and very harmful things that can come up or come from thinking that you have a platform as a like an open door for all of your wildest, most incorrect thoughts to let loose.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I will say also with a caveat, as someone who I really felt like I had to speak out on things when I first started on social media, and I think that you should really only do that if you feel comfortable, and also knowing that it could make you a target. Because unfortunately,
Of
especially for
course.
authors of color,
Mhm.
um, it becomes expected of you at a certain point. People would DM me like, "What do you think about this thing?" And I'd be like, "Wait a minute, that's not what I signed up for," you know?
Yeah.
And eventually I sort of had to pull back because I realized I was getting attention for my opinions and I wanted attention for my writing. I want
Mhm.
people to know me for my books. Another thing I will say is, and I've seen this a lot lately, and it's like it's kind of baffling and like not great, but it makes sense in that people are, you know, just trying to like get as much traction as they can. Um, and it's that just remember that social media, even if it's connected to your books and your, you know, your author career, it's really a professional place. Like, yeah, we can be silly sometimes, but also remember that like fellow authors are, for better or worse, your colleagues. I've seen a couple of people sort of try to promote their books on the backs of controversy happening to other authors.
Yes.
And that's just like a really horrible thing to do. Like
whoa,
I just wouldn't want that to be the reason why people are coming to my books and the
Mhm.
reason why I'm getting followers, because those followers will very quickly turn on you if the only
Yeah.
reason they are there is for controversy. So I would say treat it like you would any other job. Treat fellow authors like you would any other sort of colleagues in a work setting in like the real world, because that's what it is. And you might actually end up seeing them at an event, having to interact with them. And I think one thing that people don't really think about is that if you are sort of saying something unprofessional or sort of mean even about an author, you're not just coming after them. They have editors and agents and publicists that care about them and that are watching the things that you're doing. And you're essentially closing doors for yourself by acting unprofessionally towards them, even if you think like, oh, it's so funny, haha, joke. There's been times where I've been harassed by people and I go to my team and I'm like, please make sure this person never gets one of my arcs, or, you know, is able to sort of like come to one of my events being invited by you guys or anything like that, because I don't want to deal with it. And that happens a lot.
I just read the most horrible review on Goodreads from my book, and I'm like, I never thought anybody could possibly interpret my book that way. And it was
no, you go, how can you go on Goodreads? You are too strong for me, because I stay away.
Stay away from Goodreads.
You and I have had this conversation off record, or like we've talked about this before, but for me, I'm a serial reviewer. I'm a serial reader. Like, I love books and I love writing. I love reading. I love writing about reading. So for me, it came from that point of view. The first time I ever got like a 1-star review or whatever, I was like, oh, whatever, you know. But then, oh no, my book is apparently, I don't even want to give, you know what? I don't want to give any energy to this person.
Don't.
To your point though, is a lot of us also have like children. Like, a lot of us are authors with kids, young kids. And it's sort of scary when like social media turns into that kind of like dogpiling. Like, I find that to be really disturbing. So for me, I am very careful about what I say, and maybe it makes me sound a little stiff sometimes, like especially on Twitter. I try not to like get into anything, and it's so hard because sometimes it's like a reply, or how do you call it? Like, it's in a
thread.
It's in a thread, and it's like I'm responding to something, and then I don't realize it's part of like a bigger thing.
Oh, I hate when that happens.
Yeah, and they don't like untag you.
Yeah, and then everybody's getting your response. Oh my god, like, so.
Yeah,
I think you can be vulnerable on social media, and you can get a little personal, but everything you put out, and people just assume things anyway. So sometimes they will be like, as Claribel mentioned, they will be very invasive about asking you for favors or your opinion on things that you never asked to be, you know, a part of. But the more you put out, the more you're opening up to this type of behavior, where people are no longer assuming. You're giving them that information for free in 4K. And so you're just allowing people to participate in conversations that you might not have wanted to continue past that posting time.
Can I give you my second favorite word aside from budget?
What?
Boundaries?
Boundaries.
Yes.
Boundaries. And I feel like a lot of the times when I have these conversations about social media, that I feel like I always come across as very negative, because my thing that I always say is you need to have a boundary either with your time or your expectations. I feel a lot of the times when people join these channels, they feel like they need to go viral, or they need to like immediately have like a click over result to selling a book. And that's just like not how it works.
Not at all.
And it's really about, as Adriana said and Claribel said, having fun, making those connections, making that community, and being genuine within the boundaries that you set for yourself. If you don't feel comfortable sharing certain things, don't share them. You know, work with the things that are natural to yourself. Like, if you go on my TikTok, you'll see me using way too many filters because I like looking like potatoes and lemons. Like, fascinating. I find all those things fascinating, and that's who I am, and that's how I like.
How does Mia go viral? People on TikTok, sheep.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
Sheep. You have no.
But
sheep.
Speaking of then harassment, every other comment were like, goats can do this better, and I was like, I'm muting these comments. I cannot have this conversation.
I went viral for something completely unrelated to books, and it annoyed me so much. Yeah,
that happens a lot.
It's so annoying, but yeah.
My most viral one, I'm wearing a towel on my head, which is just like...
I think that when you least expected,
always
magic happens.
It's always the ones where I put the least amount of effort.
Exactly.
That's my philosophy in dating now. Least amount of effort.
You better like me on the low energy.
Exactly. I'm coming in with no energy.
Amparo, you always bring it back to dating. I've noticed that about you.
That is literally my brand. Oh. Literally.
That is your brand, though. That's fine. Yeah, mine is usually food and cuteness.
Yes. Feuds, food, and cuteness. Absolutely.
The three F's. Was that 3 F's? No.
No.
Well,
that
I
was
can say it.
Never mind.
Word,
Never
but I'm not
mind.
gonna say it.
Cuteness.
Edit that out. I will say also, if you ever want to know if you should be on something, like make a private account and like lurk and like have fun and experiment. And if it's not for you, then it's not for you,
Yeah,
and move on. You don't
Highly
have to be on
recommend.
every single social media channel.
I agree.
Um, Yeah, and I actually think there's a question from Cristina that we had that actually goes into this conversation if we can find it. If not, I'll skip over to my next question.
Yeah, I saw that question. Do you recommend being on one social media platform or multiple? Maybe just pick the one that works best for you. Like we just said, pick the
Up
one
to
that
you.
works best for you.
It's up
Yeah.
to you.
I say
Yeah.
try them all. Like Mia said, see which one works best. Also, you can't really know what works on that platform until you spend some time on there, especially TikTok, which moves so super fast. So yeah, I would say check them out, see what you have fun using, and then use whichever ones you like. You don't have to use all of them at all.
And all of them may not work the same for you either. Like I have way more followers on Instagram than I do on TikTok or Twitter. And like it's just I'm a visual person. So
And I think there's a misconception also that when something starts feeling like a chore, you should stop doing it or it's not for you. And I think that this is always going to be work, even if you're having fun. I don't know if that makes any
because it
sense.
is work. And
But
it does.
It drains you. It tires you out. You're like thinking about what to do next. And you're like, how do I think? What are thoughts? What is a brain? So I feel like that's fine. You are allowed to get drained. You are allowed to take a break or several or all of the breaks, right? You should
Yeah.
know that about yourself. Identify when you're just like, oh no, this is not working for me. But don't immediately associate the fact that you are stressed or tired with that, oh, I should just quit all of this, right? Because
Yeah.
it might just be for now, it might just be you're better in a different setting. It depends. So allow yourself that space to explore and to grow.
It could also be how you're creating. Like
Yes.
like finding sort of patterns and methods and like habits that work for you are really good. Like on TikTok, if you want to post every day, you can batch record. That's like a great way to do it, because I, like not looking like complete poop when I make a TikTok. So I'll usually like do a little bit of makeup and like comb my hair, except for that one towel one, which
The viral one, yes.
But if I'm doing that and I don't have anything else going on, I'll film a couple of TikToks in one day, and then I'll have a few to spread out throughout the week. But yeah, taking breaks is like super important too.
Mm-hmm. Also, the most annoying thing, you actually also should be writing. I know.
Oh yeah,
What is that?
that pesky thing.
Never heard of her.
I'm speaking to myself as the person who falls asleep like this, looking at TikTok. I need to stop. All right. Let's see. Okay. So next up, I wanted to chat a little bit about events, launch events, and also looking into festival, bookstores events, school visits. What's been your experiences? And for example, with launches, what do you recommend? What was your experience? Did you have one? Did you want to have one?
Well, mine was actually for my debut novel was on my YouTube channel. So it's kind of the easier way out because you're in control. And I feel like it was a great event. I had a lot of fun. I was there, not in like physically, but I could feel the love and it was really special. But at the same time, I have yet to have an in-person event. And I feel like I am the least qualified to talk about launch events, but definitely
They
virtual
count.
ones are
Virtual ones
Great.
count. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, me too.
Yay.
Yeah, I've had both.
Oh, amazing. Can't relate.
Well, here's the thing. I think it's a good idea not to put it on the day that your publication date is due, because you don't know if your book is actually going to make it like printed and shipped at that time. So I made mine a couple weeks after, like 3 or 4 weeks after. So my publishing date was August 9th. So I did mine like August 20 something, like later in August, just in case shipping, just in case, all of that stuff. So my in-person event, I had to buy my own books from Penguin Random House, which is a distributor, because remember, my indie bookstore only sells used books.
Only sells used books.
Right. So for me, flan related event, you better have some flan, girl. So I made 2 kinds of flan de queso and flan de coco, which are my favorites. Or did I do traditional? I can't remember. Anyway, did the recipe that was in the book, the easy one, with queso crema, and then the other one, which I just faced. So food was important to me because obviously it's a food book. It was a really intimate, it's a little teeny tiny used bookstore. So I had a lot of fun. My tia came from the villages and my mom came from Hollywood. And later on, I did another reading at a Barnes and Noble, and now my other cousins from Miami could come. But that first launch event was actually much later than the actual publishing date. On the day of the publishing thing, it was all social media. Like everything was like on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, like all those things were scheduled to pop up at the same time. And then I feel like I spent the entire day responding. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I had my emojis ready, my little custard emoji and heart ready, copied and ready to go, because it was a sort of thing where like my thumb was hurting by the end of the day, and it was a good feeling. I was very happy to just receive happiness and joy feelings.
So I'm gonna say having a launch event a couple weeks after the book comes out, I think that's sort of like a consideration because of supply chain issues and stuff like that. Now, I don't think it's something that people really had to deal with before. I personally disagree with having it a couple weeks after. I would try to keep up with what's going on with like printing and stock and like when the book is actually out. You should know at least a couple days before the launch event. I would just risk it and try to have it the week of, only because if you want to try to hit any sort of bestseller lists, that first week is really important. And don't sell yourself short. I know you're going like that, but
here's why. I'll tell you, it's a completely personal reason. August 9th is the day before school starts. So there was no way.
Okay, but that's just like one specific.
Yeah, exactly.
I just want to make sure people.
It was super specific to me. Yes.
Yeah. Because I think it's a good idea to try to have it on close to on the week of Ghost Squad. I had a virtual event. Obviously, everything was closed. I tried to make it as interactive as I could. I had like a landing page for it. I had a menu of food that people could either make or sort of like have snacks during the event, and drinks as well. Like Morir Soñando and stuff like that, not alcoholic drinks. Is a middle grade book. I had a playlist. I had all sorts of stuff, and I did it through StreamYard. StreamYard is a really good platform to have an event because it has like a lot of bells and whistles. You can put, people's questions and comments on the screen. You can also distribute to various different platforms. It could be on YouTube and a bunch of different places at once. And then for Witchlings, the event was actually the Saturday before the book came out. So it was nice because they could sort of market it as like a special VIP event because you were getting the book before it was actually out. And that was with a bigger bookstore. That was with Barnes and Noble. For Frizzy, we're doing a virtual event the day of, and then separate launch in person the Monday after it comes out. So it really depends. Shipping, like supply chain issues, is like a huge consideration right now. I think you have to sort of like be in constant communication with your team to know like what's going on with books, with the printing of the books, if they're in stores yet. Sometimes you won't know. I've seen people find out the day of their launch that they don't actually have any books in stores. So that is something that you have to be aware of, but it's not something that happens to everyone, right?
No.
So if you want to have
you're absolutely right about
Yeah.
that. Also, like, okay, so you just briefly mentioned like getting on like bestsellers list. Like, what, man? So like, let's say it's all pre-orders on the day of your launch. Like, I don't even know how that would work. Like, if your books didn't actually make it to the bookstore and you have your launch event, but you got all these pre-orders, like, does that help? Or
So the pre-orders will still count because they're unless they get canceled, which has always also happened. But those should all go through to first week sales, and then I forget what day is the cutoff. Is it the Sunday before the last?
I think so. And then of course it depends on the bookstore as well.
Yeah. So it's from up until your release date all the way until the Sunday before the book comes out, I believe. I might be wrong. So all those orders work. And sometimes they'll put the books out early too, but depending on the bookstores, like I think Barnes and Noble has like a mechanism in place where it won't actually count until the week of pre-orders, but you should always just ask them to make sure. But yeah, I would try to have it on the week of or as close to release date as you can. And obviously, things could go wrong, but always ask your publisher, ask your editor. Like, you can tell them, like, how many books did this store order? Like, how many are in the warehouse? Like, did they get there yet? You're not annoying. It's your book, so you have every right to ask them.
Oh, I talked to the warehouse dude. I talked to him.
Never.
I got his number.
Got his number.
Yeah.
That sounds like a rom-com, but go on. Go on.
All right, let's bring it back to events because we got 30 minutes. We got 30 minutes.
I had to sell my own books on site, so that's why. I was literally receiving them, so I knew like I had to be like, okay, are they here yet? And it's raining. That's the other thing. There's like weather and stuff in Florida that could affect shipping, so I was really freaking out. Anyway, Amparo?
Yeah, no, I think that my experience has only been virtual at the moment. I do have a lot of built up excitement for an in-person event at some point. I may or may not have some news about that soon. And I'm just really excited because in my case, I am not in the US. So I don't know why I did that. It was like
continental US? Is that what
I'm like, I mean, I feel like there are so many beloved authors so many authors that are beloved here. For example, I'm very sure that I've spoken to at least one person who was obsessed with everyone on this panel. So I feel like it's just something. Mia's face is like, really? Yes.
It's the lemon TikTok videos, I tell you.
Absolutely. I may have shared those around. So yeah, I feel like it's just, again, building community. Sometimes you're in conversation with these authors that you might not have known prior to your release. And you might just be in conversation because you have a similar theme or you're writing for the same publisher or publishing with the same editorial house. So I find it exciting because sometimes you can't really plan ahead to that point. Maybe you want to work, like all of us want to do an event together, but maybe scheduling conflicts are not going to allow that to happen. And you get someone that you don't really know that well, but it immediately becomes your best friend, right? So, or maybe it's just me in my head. I imagine best friendships all the time. So I definitely see the fun of launching as a social experiment and an opportunity. Yes, of course, to connect with readers and sell books, but mostly you get to know yourself more because you're like, okay, these are my boundaries, Mia's favorite word. And also, this is what I would like. This is what I hope for. As a reader, I enjoy launches because of this. But as an author, do I like this as well? Like, what is my personal style in this setting? And so I feel like those are things that will take practice and a lot of patience to internalize because your launch is not an automatic blueprint for every single event that you do, whether you're by yourself or you're in conversation with other people. So if you have, for example, I don't want this to happen to any debut author, but if you have a terrible or a bad launch experience, I don't want you to think that's going to set a precedent and people are going to remember you for that specific experience because that's not true. Maybe people will remember that, but at the same time, what I mentioned about social media not being a journal, sometimes you just have to internalize things for yourself and rely on your very, very tight circle of friends or family or other people in the industry that you feel comfortable sharing things with, and just keep going because you never really know what's ahead until you get there. So just keep going, just keep swimming.
So true.
So true, bestie.
Yeah.
True, true.
I will also say, take note of the things that you like to do. For example, I'm not a fan of reading out loud.
Ooh,
So
same.
that's something that I skipped for my second book that I did for my first launch. I was like, I'm not gonna read an expert. Like, it's not something I like to do. I like to chat and have conversation, and eat food. So those are the things I concentrated on. Let me see. I'm going to skip over to events because I don't want us to run out of time. So when I did the resolutions, I pitched myself to like every single festival and school and like thing that I could find, to the point that I may have like burned myself out a little bit too much. Can you talk a little bit of if you have pitched yourself for festivals, or if that's something that your publisher handled, and what you feel that you got from attending the festivals? And of course, attending schools is immediately you're speaking to that audience, of course, but a little bit about events and your experience.
I think in my case, and this is just like a recommendation that I like to make, if you have a website or if you're on social media and you don't have a website yet, I think Linktree is very helpful because there you can just allow people the opportunity to see where you are online. You just literally link to different platforms. But I think having your publicist's information, their email available is very important because sometimes people will just DM you with invitations or email you invitations, and you just have to CC your agent and your publicist, right? So they're aware of everything. But if it's all filtered through them first, and then they're like, well, this seems like a good opportunity. What do you think? Are you available? Right? So I think that's step number one, something that I find very helpful. And in my case, I have done more conferences and festivals, like things, than school things. And all of the school things have been because readers and teachers and librarians, specifically teachers and librarians, have wanted to bring Blaze Wrath games into the classroom or show this specific project simply because of the subject matter in terms of the cultural aspect to their specific schools. So it's all been invite only. And but that doesn't obviously negate the fact that I would love to visit more schools and just talk to more people that are particular to the age group that I'm writing to. So
I've done a mixture of both. I've done like library conferences, I've done book festivals, and I've done school visits. School visits are sometimes organized through Scholastic because they have the book fair. They will like send authors with the book fair to like schools that spend a lot of money. So that's cool. But also people reach out to me a lot. Like for most of my school visits, is people reaching out to me directly, like librarians and teachers. I have an educators page on my website as well, that specifies like, hey, I'm open to doing school visits and like virtual visits. My publisher also has a page for authors that do school visits, like with like sort of different programs that they do, and people can book you through there for Scholastic. And then for events, it's been a mixture of people inviting me directly or people going through my publicist or my publisher. It can get really confusing when people start DMing. I forget, my DMs get full, and I'm very scatterbrained. So email always works best for me. And one thing that I will give as a tip is, even if you haven't confirmed something, put a hold in your calendar. I quadruple booked last year, like literally 4 events in one weekend. And it was like my worst nightmare. Like that's like the thing that gives me anxiety, like that I dream about, like not showing up for a place that I'm supposed to be at. And it's because I was just overwhelmed with a lot of invitations, and I wasn't organized in how I sort of kept track of them. So I was being booked, and when you have more than one publisher, it gets even worse. So even if 3, it's hard. You're working with so many different people. They're not talking to each other sometimes.
Mhm.
So they, can sometimes mess up. Also, like, publishers have like a school and library arm, and then like a trade publication arm. So sometimes they will not talk to each other, and they'll be like, do you want to go to this event? And it happens at the same time. So you really do need to keep track. I would definitely say, the moment that you are invited somewhere and that you're considering it, just put it in your calendar, hold for X, whatever it is. Another thing along the lines of what Amparo was suggesting is, on top of having my publicist information on my website, I also link a Google Calendar that's like my public events on my calendar. So if you go on my website and you go to events, there's a calendar and you can see where I'm going to be when. I've heard from publicists that can be really helpful. If they want to invite you to something, they'll know if you're available or not according to your calendar. Obviously, it's not going to have like going to my grandma's house, but they'll at least know that you're not doing like a public facing event, right? So that's another really helpful thing that I would suggest, and it's super easy to set up. You can just like put a Google Calendar plugin onto your website and then connect it to like a public events calendar, and every time you plug it in, it'll just automatically go to your website.
I was about to ask you how you keep track of all of that, because for me, like, I'm still at the beginning of this, right? Since I just published in August, I've only had a couple of school events, and I think I love reading out loud. I love acting it out. I love doing the voices. Like, that's something that brings me joy. So I like that. I like reading to kids. I was a teacher, and I loved, that's the part that I loved. I hated grading. I hated all that other stuff, the administrative stuff. So this was really fun to just read a book, answer hilarious questions, peace out. Like, it's great. I think the other one, the events, I haven't had very good luck, I guess, with like events for older people or writers, and maybe it's because I write for children. I don't know, but this is also locally, so I can't wait to branch out to try this in a different atmosphere. Let's say.
Yeah. One thing you can definitely do is like make a list of places that you want to go and be invited to, and share that with your publicist and your team. There's nothing wrong with asking. Like, the worst thing is no, but they can pitch you for stuff, and then you never know. You could just get flown there, and it's great. So definitely ask. Always ask for stuff.
I know. I asked for my new book fair, but it was too short notice.
Well, for next year, now they know that you're
interested. Now they know, yeah. Okay. So let's go into some of our audience questions, and we have about 15 minutes left. So we can do some quick answers. Can we see the first? Here we go. What debut marketing publicity stuff would you not do again? What was not worth your time?
I think it's difficult quantifying what wouldn't work in terms of sales or impact. In terms of how many views you get on a video or stuff like that. That's a little bit more quantifiable. But what would I not do? I actually have to think about that.
Yeah, think about that. I mean, that also counts for your time.
I would like not spread myself as short as as thin as I did the first time. Everything that I did helped me in some way. Either it was a lesson that I learned because I knew like this didn't work for me. So I wouldn't tell somebody don't do this, because for them it might be a different outcome. So I think try the things that you want to try to do and see how they work for you. It's a book by book basis. It's an author by author basis. So it's really hard to give like blanket statements. But what I will say is protect your time, protect your writing time, protect your mental health, and don't try to do too much. Like, I think especially for marginalized authors and authors of color, there's this like expectation that we're also advocates and that we're also doing all this extra stuff. And I think it's really unfair, because at the end of the day, the only thing that we really owe anybody is our writing. We're already doing so much just by writing the book. So I think don't guilt trip yourself into thinking that you need to do a million things. Do what's within your grasp, within your time. And if you need to pull back on stuff, that's totally okay. It's fine to tell. I tell my agent all the time, I'm not taking blurbs from here to here because I need to focus on this deadline. Unless it's, you know, Lady Gaga, just don't ask me.
You gotta blurb her
That's
book.
a given. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I think same with me. I think the only thing that I wouldn't do are certain activities or like groups that I was in that took a lot of time. Like I think a lot of debut authors, we join all these marketing collectives, and I think a lot of them are helpful, but some of them are. I felt like I was doing a lot of the work, and like I was the one doing all the social media stuff, and I felt like, okay, this may not be. I know for my book 2 and 3, I don't have the time.
It's about that community going back and forth and not just one way.
Right. And also in addition to the community building that I was doing, it also literally don't have time. Like I don't have time to do that for other people if it was asked of me. So I felt like I couldn't reciprocate. I wouldn't be able to reciprocate for the next 2 books.
Yeah. I will note that sometimes I also have to remind myself that once a book is out, it's out. You will get a long. It's like a marathon, right? It's not a sprint. So if you lose all that energy within the first month, put all that energy within the first month, your book is still going to be available the second month, the third month, the fourth month, and you want to have that longevity. So not to spread yourself, as Claribel said, not spread yourself so thin so quickly. I feel like a lot of the times we concentrate all that energy on that first week, first 2 weeks, first month, and then that we have the rest of the year where we don't have that energy to talk about the book.
True.
Also, your book is out. Like once it's out, it's so much easier to get people to buy it. I think people think like, oh, my release date is done. I don't have to talk about it anymore. But like, no, keep talking about it because
now they can buy it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so much
Now it
easier to get
begins.
people to pick it up than like after the fact, then ask them to pre-order. People are like, what? Why am I pre-ordering?
Yeah.
My cousin, what do you mean pre-order? A book? Like,
People will pre-order movie tickets, but books, they're like, you can do that with books? Wow.
right, exactly. Like it just didn't apply. Like they just didn't have a reason to know that.
Do we have another question?
There were a couple ones.
Here we go. What is something from your debut year that turned out to be better than you expected? What's that joy that stuck with you from that debut?
I'm still in it, people.
Well, what's the joy now, Adriana? Let's go. It should be fresh in your mind.
I'm excited about going to schools and reading my book and then trying out new voices for the abuelita, depending on what school I'm in.
That's beautiful. I love it.
I think I was invited to do several interviews for different YouTube channels, and that was one of the best parts about it. But at the same time, I was very stressed out about that because I was like, people are looking at me, you know, and I love talking to people, whether it's in front of a camera or in person, but I also feel like whatever you say is forever. You know, it's on the internet. So you can't delete it or take it back. So I feel like that was stressful, but at the same time, I found a lot of my current friendships through those opportunities. So that was better than I ever expected.
I think everything was better than I expected because once the pandemic hit, I wasn't expecting much. Like, you know, Ghost Squad was, I hate calling my book or anybody's book little or small, so I won't say that, but it wasn't, you know, it certainly didn't have like a huge budget behind it or anything like that. So, you know, I was just like, well, the book's going to do what it does and I can't expect anything. And the way that my career has sort of unfolded from this really sort of hard time to debut in 2020 has really been surprising and great. And I've amazing friends and got to work with people. Amparo got to hear me panic when we worked on the Marvel anthology together, which was really fun.
Was fantastic.
It's just been a lot of really amazing experiences and hearing from kids, getting letters from them and hearing from people who my books have helped has just been incredible. I can't really ask for anything more. I feel very lucky to be able to do this.
Yeah, definitely the comments on the book from people I don't know, from friends of friends or family, like that is super cool.
So nice, yeah.
I love the ones that are just feeling rage or anger towards your villains or like people that you like antagonists, and you're like, wow, I really despise this person for so long in my head, and now others can also despise them. It's fantastic.
You can cause emotions in other people. Yeah.
Yes.
That's excellent. I agree with community and the people that I've gotten to know and share experiences with. That has been amazing. And I, like getting to be in an anthology, it was on my bucket list, and
Yay!
it's so exciting, especially writing fiction outside of contemporary fiction that I hadn't done before. So it's a lot of exciting joy in that. Let's see. Next question, please. Would you say that picking things you would be excited as a reader to get from a pre-order campaign is a good way to approach this process? Ooh, excellent question. I would say yes, like things that you would be excited to get should be something that you might consider doing along with budgeting.
I agree. Also, I wanted to share something with you guys since I talked about buttons. Buttons, like enamel pins, can be really expensive, but I got this thing on Etsy, which is heavy, but it's a button maker.
The badge maker.
And I've gotten so much use out of this thing. It's really great. It's you just like you can print out the little artwork in the circles and you make little like the regular buttons that you sort of pin on. People love them and they're great. They're great to have if you like forgot to order something, if you want to use them for your pre-order campaign. It's also like fun to make them.
De-stressing. You're distressing.
Therapeutic. Yes. It's like,
but it's another community related thing. When I would go to people's book launches, I would make buttons of their book cover and I would bring it with me and I would just like give it to people while I was there. It just like made people really excited and gives them an opportunity to sort of like take a picture of something like on their jean jacket or like with the book. And it's just like a nice way to like celebrate other authors that, you know, the button maker I think was like close to $250, but I've gotten a lot of use out of it. It's a really good one, and
it looks like a good one.
It's super worth it, and stuff like that. It doesn't have to be that specifically, but things that you can use in the long term that are going to serve you, where you can make something yourself, not just for you, but for fellow authors and creators. I think can also always be really great.
Yeah, because it's you at the end of the day. Like it's a product, but it's you. Like you're not selling yourself, but it's attached to your name and you want to be proud of what's attached to your name. You're proud of your book, hopefully. Mm-hmm. So you want to be proud of everything that goes along with it.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Did we have another question? What was the thing that you had to learn the hard way that you now tell people to be aware of?
Goodreads.
Oh,
stay away from Goodreads, y'all. Stay away.
As Adriana can say.
Adriana's like, absolutely not. I will be going on it every day.
Well, it's hard. It's hard.
I love when it hasn't happened recently, but it has happened that people will tag you in like these beautiful photos on Instagram.
Oh,
and you're like,
wow,
the bad review.
Photo of my book. That? And then you click on the post and it's like 2.5 stars. Like, this is trash.
I will still use it if it's a good photo. I don't care.
You're going to boost that post. Can I put money behind this?
Right. I love it. I don't care if you hated it. That's a great photo.
Can I ask, what's your zodiac sign, Adriana?
I'm a Leo Virgo.
That makes sense. Yes.
Yeah, we can't go into this. We can't go into this right now.
We don't have time.
I'm like, if it's a beautifully styled photo, why not?
All that energy into I hated it, which I also understand, to be honest.
I think mine has to do with boundaries as well. There were a lot of times when I was new and I was looking for an agent that I was like, why are authors so closed off? Like, why do they not do this? Why don't they post more about like newer authors? And like, as I've gotten more in the industry, I realized that a lot of it has to do with like, again, protecting your time and your boundaries. And unfortunately, there are really great people in this community, but not everybody is great. And you can't let everybody in. You have to be selective, especially when you are on sort of like under a spotlight and there are a lot of people vying for your time and attention. It can get overwhelming. You want to help as many people as you can. But it's important to sort of listen to your gut and to listen to that little voice that tells you, like, I have an uneasy feeling about doing this or supporting this person or sort of doing this event, whatever that may be. It's okay to say no to things and to people, basically, and to set those really important boundaries, and to have, you know, a group of people who support you. You're not obligated to let everybody into your space, because the further along you get in your career, the harder it's going to be to juggle. There's going to be so many things going on, and it's okay to put yourself and your mental health first.
That was fantastic. It's okay to say no.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
And if you struggle with saying no yourself, that's what your agent is for.
Oh yeah.
You're like, that's the biggest advocate you have. I don't mean to sound like that, but I am like that. So if you have that moment where you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to communicate this to my editor or to another author or to someone organizing an event, and you're just like, what do I do? You can troubleshoot things and brainstorm things with your agent, or your agent can just be like, okay, well then I'll, communicate for you. It's
if
fine.
something is right in front of you, that's a great phrase to say, oh my God, that sounds like an amazing idea. I got to check with my agent.
Yeah.
Like, to throw them under. I mean,
maybe don't wink, but yes, exactly.
Yeah, no winking. That gives it all away.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have only 4 minutes left. I'm going to bring this question up only if Adriana can keep it short, because we got 4 minutes left. Can we bring the abuelita one on the screen just for like a second?
I knew
you gotta keep it short though. We got like 4 minutes.
I'm doing this phrase from the book. That's it.
All right, do it.
Sí, mi niña, let's start. But remember, flan takes time and paciencia.
Amazing.
Oh, that was so good.
Art. It in my heart. All right. Can we very quickly list where we can find you all, and then we will wrap it up. We got 2 minutes left. So where can we find you and follow your writing journey?
On Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram, I am at Amparo_Ortiz. And my website is amparoortiz.com.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, at Claribel_Ortega, and my website is claribelortega.com.
Y'all were so smart using your names. But I have, I'm everywhere at Adriprints, ADRIPRINTS, or my website, which is adriprints.com or adrianabergstrom.com. Takes you to the same place. On, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook.
Beautiful. And I'm M. Garcia Writes across everything. And I'm on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And thank you for attending our debut authors Expectations versus Realities panel at the Latinx Kid Lit Book Festival. And please look for the rest of our amazing programming. Thank you and good night.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.